welcome back. I am your host Mel, and this is Animel, where we talk about all things anime for new anime viewers and veteran anime viewers like myself. We're in the very last week of December, so we're very close to 2022. But before we can even ring in the new year, I think this would be a great time to just look through 2021 and all the amazing anime that 2021 has given us. Unfortunately, like going from 2020 to 2021, we all anticipated a lot of greatness from 2021, but there was not so much greatness. Luckily, we had a lot of great anime, but similarly, we had a lot of not so great anime that had a lot of promise to it and a lot of hype to it for its uniqueness. And then we also had a lot of cringy anime. I feel like anime would not be anime, or media would not be media, but specifically anime wouldn't be like it without some cringy factor. And while every single anime has some cringiness in it, there's just some animes in general, like the entire show is just cringy. So yeah, before we get into 2022, I think there are some great 2021 animes to add to your list that I loved this year and that got me through the year. And there are some that you should definitely skip if you haven't seen it yet and it's on your list. But before I jump into it, I am wearing a wonderful Jujutsu Kaisen t-shirt. If you could check it out here. I'm gonna turn around real quick in hopes that I don't mess it up. And it basically has all of the students on the back of the shirt. And I just thought I'd show you all, since one of my very favorite animes of this year, which kind of started at the end of 2020, so I don't know if it counts, but one of my favorite animes from this year was definitely Jujutsu Kaisen. Just wonderful action, unique storyline, great female characters. It kind of has like the package going on for it. And while most of us, if not all of us in the United States that's a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen is waiting for the movie to come out, since it was just released in Japan a few days ago, until then, you know, let's just rewatch the first season, I guess. Without further ado, let's check out the rest. Start desu! And while we had some really great lovable animes like Jujutsu Kaisen, I can't talk about 2021 without realizing that there were some other fantastic return season animes like My Hero Academia, main character just getting new abilities, showcasing basically other students' developments. I think that this latest season of My Hero Academia is going to take us into a very interesting future as we await season 6 in 2022. This is one of the animes that I feel like I always look forward to every year, so if you haven't seen it yet, there are plenty of episodes for you to watch. I will say it's slow to start, but it's one that I return to every time there's a new season, and it's one that I continue to love more and more as time goes on, as the show expands and develops on its main characters and then some additional supporting characters. Some other return animes include Fruits Basket, the final. So Fruits Basket was actually released in the 90s, early 2000s, and due to some conflict between the studio and the original manga creator, they kind of stopped that. And I guess there was a revival of some sort, brought back the show, and the very last season aired this year. It was really short compared to seasons 1 and 2. There's only 3 seasons of it, but I don't think there was a single episode that I didn't cry my eyes out just watching each and every character develop within the final season. I think the show does a really good job in what pulls in their audiences. One, its uniqueness of storyline, where you've got a bunch of characters that are cursed with Chinese zodiacs to the point that they can't interact with people physically outside of their family, or outside of the other curse holders. I don't know how to really explain it well, but essentially they're cursed to basically embody these Chinese zodiac animal spirits for eternity, and which causes lots of grief, difficulty to develop bonds until this girl Toru, regular human, comes around and disrupts all of their lives. So we finally get to see how Toru found her happiness, and all of the other characters who are cursed by the zodiac spirits eventually find their happiness and are able to break their curse. Just the story development of the show and the character development and watching them grow throughout all 3 seasons is a beautiful creation. And while, you know, I said it made me cry a lot, it made me also feel about like a huge bounty of love for the show and the characters. While I can talk about all of these different animes that have returned with new seasons this year, I think it's time we definitely get into some very brand new shows that were released in 2021 for the first time ever. So essentially, first season that's being released. And while there were some very fantastic ones like To Your Eternity, where I feel it's another one of those stories where you end up bawling your eyes out and getting so attached to the main character's story development. It's also a very unique way at looking at death and grieving people who have died in a very supernatural sense. At the risk of spoiling it, since this is a video talking about what I loved and didn't love from anime 2021, I won't be going into the plot necessarily, only because I think that To Your Eternity is such a masterpiece that's hard to explain, and you kind of have to watch it to understand the concept of it. But I think like its very core underlying theme is dealing with grief and how to remember ones that have passed as you live on, and just like carrying their legacy with you, if that makes sense. It takes something that's very human, or duh, it's human, we all die, right? But it takes something that we can essentially all as human beings relate to, or just living beings relate to, and help us really, I think, come to better terms with the concept of death. Not to be too morbid, I felt like after watching it, I felt more comfortable with the idea of death. Yeah, cool. But it's definitely a beautiful storyline that you should check out, and it is definitely within my top 5 of animes this year, if not top 3 actually. And as I continue on my rant of anime that I loved so much from 2021, The Way of the House Husband was definitely a surprise gift from Netflix. It's kind of like a still image type of anime where there isn't like a lot of physical movement, but it's just so comedic. It's basically about a gangster, the former gang leader who is now a house husband, and because I guess like his personality embodies some of that like gangster nature of his, everything that he does as a house husband has this like gangster umph. Is that the best way to say it? Gangster umph. If you watch some of the clips and the scenes, he's just so intense about cooking, grocery shopping, and the way that he approaches people. He seems like menacing, but he's not. It ended up being just a very surprised anime that helped me get through like, I guess, the winter essentially, because it was released I think earlier this year, and then they came out with the second half within the fall. But overall, it's just so laughable and enjoyable, and there's no like real storyline to it, so you can watch it with ease and comfort, and it's really short. I think that made it so amusing and so comforting, and such a relaxing show to enjoy versus immersing myself into a very deep storyline. While there were so many other animes from 2021 that I really loved and I really enjoyed, at the risk of keeping you for a full freaking hour, let's just cut it short, and I'm gonna round this out with Tokyo Revengers. Tokyo Revengers was quite a bit of a surprise, only because I thought I was not going to like it. It seemed very similar to the show Erased, and you can check out an earlier video to get a sense as to what erased is. But it's about a guy who essentially goes back in time to save his girlfriend, but like everyone's in a gang. Yeah, it sounds really weird when I explain it out loud, actually. But overall, it's not the time travel that I appreciate about the show, even though the way that they create the time travel is, I think, a little, like, it's a little better than other time travel shows that I've seen, because it doesn't allow for a lot of, like, loopholes or plot holes in the storyline. And I think that what I appreciate most is that this is a shonen show, like an action show, but it's not like super duper supernatural. Like, you're basically watching a bunch of teenagers and adults at times duke it out physically. So it's all about raw physical human strength, not talking about, like, you know, supernatural strength. I'm not talking about superpowers, just regular human strength, and they're just beating the shit out of each other. So I appreciate the raw animation of, like, a bunch of, like, 16, 17-year-olds just duking it out, and then also the bonds and the relationships that they build with them. I think the only thing that will put you off is that the main character, I strongly believe, he's just a plot device. He is a plot device to progress the story of the other characters. So I wouldn't even call all the other characters supporting characters. They're almost just as main characters as the main character, but the core main character, Takemichi, yeah, he's not really useful. And that's why I think he's a plot device to help progress the story for other characters. Now, aside from everything that I've loved from 2021, like most people, 2021 was a struggle, so there was definitely not so great lovable stuff. Some highly anticipated anime like Yasuke, which was basically about a samurai who was black, and I think that any show that has well-represented and drawn black characters is interesting to me at first and always holds a lot of promise. There's not always a lot of great black representation within anime, and when I say black representation, I mean, like, accurately drawn. Some of them are kinda not accurate. So essentially, I was looking forward to it quite a lot because you've got a main black character who seems to be, like, well drawn to depict a person of color. But the storyline ended up being, like, really choppy, and it didn't make any sense. Like, you had a guy who was a samurai, but then there was this supernatural ability, and don't get me wrong, like, you can't watch an anime in any timeline that probably doesn't have some supernaturalness to it. But the way that the storyline was progressing, it was like, it seemed like, you know, it was gonna be like a regular type of traditional samurai period story, but then out of nowhere, they introduced this very supernatural, magical element. And then there are just, like, lots of plot holes as to what happens to certain characters. I was confused majority of the time. And it's a really short anime. I think it was like 6 to 8 episodes, and I was confused most of the time. That was super problematic for me. I couldn't fully enjoy it, and, you know, I was thoroughly disappointed. And unfortunately, Yasuke wasn't the only disappointment. Season 2 of The Promised Neverland, just straight, is it mean if I say garbage? It was straight garbage. They cut out one of the most key components of the manga, and I read the manga while watching the anime because my fiance convinced me to read it, but I was just like, dude, what was the whole premise behind this? Like, you took, like, a whole, like, potential maybe 3 to 4 season anime, truncated it down to 2 seasons, cut out the dopest part of the story, and then you, like, tweaked the ending order. Like, it was just botched. It was just completely botched. And what was so shocking is that they had the original creator involved in the adaptation. So at some point, it went from being an anime adaptation to an original, because the second season / the ending was basically mostly original content. Yeah, I was super disappointed by that. It's so disappointing that I think it's safe to say that people won't even acknowledge that there was a season 2 and all there really is a season 1. You know what, let's just go with that. There's only one season of Promised Neverland, guys. If you see a season 2 like in your queue or on your streaming service, it's an error. Don't watch it. Let's move on. This may be a repeat from an earlier episode in which I talked about some new animes coming in the fall, but this show ended up being so wholesome and cute that I couldn't avoid talking about it. It's not like love the anime, but it was super cute, and it's coming back in April of 2022, and it's called Komi-san Can't Communicate, or Komi Can't Communicate. And it's just like, I think it's a bit of an exaggerated form of social anxiety, or extreme social anxiety. It doesn't really depict something super accurate, but it definitely embodies some of the feelings of someone who may have social anxiety that has it or goes through it. And it's just like a really cute story between a girl who literally can't communicate and uses writing in a notebook to communicate with others because she really wants friends, but she has a hard time speaking to people and has social anxiety. And she ends up making like friendships or building friendships with some very unique characters. One, the other main character, Tadano, being someone who is actually not popular. Everyone pretty much, doesn't like him. And I don't think they don't like him for a specific reason. I just think he's not a popular character and people don't enjoy his company or befriend him. He basically has no friends, and Komi is kind of like his first real high school friend on top of that. But essentially you watch their relationship grow. It's very cute. And then they introduce some other characters who are very quirky. One character who actually is friends with everyone, the complete opposite of Komi, and is super sociable. And there's kind of like a running gag about her character, or rather their character. I can't even say her character because their gender is kind of unknown. Tadano is always pointing out how they should be going to the men's room, but is often seen wearing a skirt or hanging out with mostly female characters. They're basically genderless at this point, so I'm just gonna call them they. And then you've got another character who's one of those like pretty characters that's super obsessed with Komi, and she has this dark side. So it's like really funny, really wholesome, and a very cute anime to watch if you just want to like smile and laugh a little. Something really cool that's been happening lately that happened in 2021 is that there have been a lot of originals created by the streamers themselves. So Crunchyroll for some time, I think since like 2019 or 2018, has been creating kind of like their own animes. And this year, they decided to partner with our very good, well-known friends, Adult Swim, and create an anime in conjunction. So they ran all the English dubbed episodes on Adult Swim, while they released all the subtitled episodes on Crunchyroll. And I thought, I don't know if I'm gonna like this show, only because the premise is about a young girl or woman who becomes a pirate, and I was like, is this One Piece? Like I'm getting One Piece vibes. But anyway, so I was like, all right, let me check it out. The animation seems really cool. I wonder what type of partnership flourished this animation. And for the most part, the concept is really interesting, where our main character, Fena, in the show, if I didn't mention, is called Fena, Pirate Princess, is basically the reincarnation of Joan of Arc. And her task as this reincarnation is to basically find Eden, which is like this mythical holy land, and reach this point at which she will basically make an executive decision as this being to either end the world and end all human suffering, or continue the existence of the world and allow war, disease, and grief to continue to exist. The premise I thought was super cool, but like most of this premise was revealed at the end, which unfortunately was very rushed. Like, this anime left me like this at the very end, because I was like, you guys had such great story building going for like the first 8 to 9 episodes, and I believe there's about 12, and then the last 3 episodes was just like rush, and I'm just like, where are we going with this? Why did it end so quickly? What? So like, it was fun, and the concept was interesting. The animation was nice, and the action was cool too. I really appreciated all the different fighting styles of the different characters. But then the ending just was like, what's going on now? It was very confusing. I think that's how I felt about most of 2021. As I mentioned earlier, anime would not be anime without some cringiness. That means there are definitely some shows out there that are like cringe-worthy to the max. These two next shows are like, I honestly don't even know why I continued to watch them to their very end. One of them is called Kimo, and the other one is called Higehiro. Essentially, both shows have this creepiness factor that share older men falling in love with younger girls that are in high school. Like, I don't have a problem with age difference. It's just the fact that these girls were still in high school. One of them, well, they're both creepy in their own ways. Kimo is essentially about a guy, Ryu, office salaryman, who ends up falling in love with his younger sister's best friend, Ichika, because this girl saved his life one day and, like, as a joke, offered to reward her by, like, kissing her, and obviously she thought that was gross. Her, like, put-offness of him, and he's used to usually, like, attracting any type of woman he wants, her coldness to him basically attracted him to her. And it was kind of like this very, like, hot and cold relationship, and she ended up developing feelings for him too. Now, what puts me off is that she's like a 16, 17-year-old in high school, not even 18, 19 yet, and he's like 26, 27. And I'm just like, this feels wrong in many ways. And obviously you see, like, other characters question the aspect of this relationship that's growing. Like, I would say the only cute thing about it, or the thing that I liked about it, is that Ryu, being a man who was normally a womanizer, had never felt love in his life, just like did whatever he wanted with the women that he liked because he had the ability to, finally met someone who was like, yeah, no, I'm not about that. Like, you're good looking, but you're kind of a creep. So the fact that he was able to realize that he could feel love, that to learn to respect women and to treat them properly was very interesting, and to be less creepy, essentially. Like, that was the only cute part of it, and I think that's what kind of held me in there. But also, Ichika had another love interest. You know how all shows have, like, that secondary love interest, like that rival? And he was her age. Like, they were both in the same class. They had the same freaking interests. And I was just like, dude, this guy, he's for you. You have a lot in common. But no. She was like, yeah, I don't really like you like that. I want to like you. You seem compatible for me, but I don't really like you like that. I think overall the show goes to explain a lot of, if I were to really look past all the weird cringiness, it just goes to show that you can't help who you fall in love with, and sometimes those relationships can be tricky or difficult, even though there may be other people who potentially like you that you may have more in common with, and you may be quote-unquote more compatible with. But I guess, like, interest compatibility and age compatibility can't compensate for, like, chemistry. And sadly, or unfortunately, at the very same time as Kimo was running, Higehiro was also running at the same time, and I was watching both of them. So, like, spring 2021 cringe animes was just, like, a little too high. I feel like if you're gonna have cringy animes, let there be, like, one per, like, season, you know, like one cringy anime in the spring, and then maybe one cringy anime in the fall or winter. Too many cringy animes, I think you may end up breaking people. So Higehiro is essentially about a man who ends up getting rejected by his office crush because long story short, she was trying to play hard to get, and in like a drunken stupor one night finds this girl on the streets who's a high schooler that ran away from home, and he just was like, I'm going to basically like adopt you, even though she tried to force her way onto him. And there's some very dark undertones about, you know, runaways and like these young girl runaways having to sleep with men to stay in a place. There was a lot of cringiness to it and a lot of uncomfortability in the show. Like, I guess the ending ended up being kind of cute because this guy never developed romantic feelings for her and always made it clear, like, girl, you are like a high schooler, which I appreciated. He said, this is a very thick line. This isn't a fine line. This is a very thick line. You are in high school. I will never have feelings for you. Like, let's keep this separate. You're here to stay with me until you are ready to go home because I understand you're going through your but like, this thing between us is completely platonic / I am acting as your father figure. And he ends up being like sort of like a pseudo father figure by the end of the show, but like you end up realizing that this girl, I think, is developing feelings for him, which makes it like very weird, you know? So like, I hope the show doesn't continue. I feel like if it ends up continuing, like, please time skip very far into the future where she's at least like 23 or something like that, and then they end up getting together. I don't freaking know. But like, can you not make this like a recent occurring thing where they end up getting together and she just turned 18? Like, it's weird. It's just weird. As you can tell by this list, 2021 was full of a lot of great anime, as I stated, a lot of not so great and very disappointing anime, and a lot of very, very, very cringy anime. But I think that if this list isn't the embodiment of 2021, I don't know what is. I think we have a lot to look forward to 2022. I think that if the roster for 2022's like amazing animes is any indication of like how well 2022 will go for like regular life, you know, I've got my fingers and all my fingers and my arms and my toes and legs crossed that 2022 will be a better year. That is going to do it for me for the year of 2021. Thank you everyone who has spent the last couple of months watching, subscribing, commenting, liking on my videos. I truly appreciate all of your support. I'm already working on content and material for 2022, so the next time you'll see me is in 2022. Unless you're watching this in 2022, then Happy New Year! Welcome to 2022. If not, then I hope you have a happy rest of 2021 and a happy holiday season. I look forward to your continued support in 2022, and I hope that the content will continue to keep you entertained. Until then, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Mel, and this is Annie Mel. Bye! Happy New Year, everyone!